In this demonstration, I'll show how CAD files of a heat exchanger can be brought into a priori, some basic manufacturing questions answered, and then a cost quickly generated. On the left-hand side of the screen, I have Creo with a CAD file representation of a heat exchanger. On the right, I have a priori. With a priori, I can navigate to any CAD file from any system. It only needs to be a solid model, and I can read those native CAD files. I now create an associative link back to the CAD file. Here we can see those CAD files were brought directly into a priori. From here, a priori recognizes as an assembly. I need to tell a priori where I want to make this. So I could select a region of the globe. This has appropriate labor and overhead rates for those regions. I've got 75 represented at all. I set an annual volume, and then I hit cost. What a priori does is brings the assembly in and then splits it up into the appropriate components. Here we see all the different components in the assembly. Green dots mean I've costed a part already. Gray mean I haven't. I have components in here like nuts, bolts, and hardware. Those things I can automatically bring cost in for those as they're off-the-shelf items. But then there are other components where I don't have cost. For example, this part right here, I'll click it and open it. When I do that, a priori is going to ask me some basic questions. What's the process group? Here I can choose anything from additive manufacturing, casting, sandcasting, stock machining is the one I'll choose for this. I choose a geographic location of the USA. I set a material of Inconel, choose my annual volume, and then I hit the cost button. What a priori will do is look at that component, understand that it's machined, and then look at a variety of different ways to machine it, and then choose the most appropriate. Once it chooses the appropriate process, it'll then choose the appropriate machine within that process. So for example, if it chooses 2-axis lathe, 3-axis mill, it'll then go out and choose the appropriate mill or lathe that's of that size with the labor and overhead rates. A priori's come back from costing. It's telling me that it chose round bar, 2-axis lathe, 3-axis mill. It'll give me a part cost of $737 based on this being made in the USA, machined out of Inconel at a volume of 25. It's mechanistically captured the cost. If I decide that I don't want to make this as a stock machine part, but I'd like to make it as an additive manufacturing part, I can create a scenario, call it additive. It'll then give me a knockoff of that. And then I simply switch my process group to additive. Now I have two models of this thing that I have explored the cost on, and then I can compare and choose which one I want. A priori has now come back with this as an additive manufacturing part. It's chosen the process of powder bed fusion. It's added some machining and wire EDM to pull off the support structure, and then I have a cost summary of that component as well. I can now go back to my top level assembly. Maybe I'd like to explore some other components in here. For example, this shell right here, this is going to be a sheet metal part. So I'll go in and set the process group to sheet metal. I don't need to make it out of Inconel. I'll choose a Corel 1020, and then I'll cost that. Once again, this is going to look at multiple ways to manufacture this and then choose the appropriate based on the volume. Here are those different process groups: laser, laser punch, plasma, all the way up to hard tool processes. A priori has now come back with the cost for this component, and here we have a cost of $19. If I go back to that top level assembly, eventually I'll have costed all the components in here and be able to generate a complete cost. In addition to this, I can add secondaries like welding, painting. I simply pick the edge that I want to put my weld on and create that weld. I can paint this. I can do many secondary processes. So we understand that the cost is not just in the cost of the components, but also the secondaries. Once each of the gray dots is gone, I will then have a total cost for this heat exchanger.